Do you need saves? Well, you're listening to a fantasy baseball podcast, so I'm going to guess the answer is yes. I've got RotoWire's reliever expert Ryan Rufe on the line. We're going to take a look at every bullpen in baseball to try to figure out where the next saves on the waiver wire will come from here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hello and welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Erik Halterman here, joined by Ryan Rufe today, RotoWire's reliever expert. And Ryan, we'll be getting into the bullpen soon enough. But I wanted to ask, since you and I both streamed each other's RotoWire online championship drafts back in March, how's it going there? Are you winning the whole thing?
No. I'm actually doing pretty poorly in that league. That's my worst online championship league. I think I'm ninth. Yeah. But it's still a long season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a long season. I'm not too worried about it. I've made comebacks before, but how's your team going?
I'm not doing a whole lot better. I was off to a good start, and then I fell down to 7th by late April, and I'm sitting around there. I think my best pick was a Zach Neto pick that you encouraged me to make while we were streaming together. And then I threw a whole bunch of fab at Nick Kurtz. That's the only guy I've managed to land there. But let's start with Nick Kurtz because, hey, he did something yesterday. A 2-homer game for Nick Kurtz, somebody who people were rather excited to add, a very fast-moving, power-hitting first baseman, drafted 4th overall in last year's draft, and he's already here, and he really has been struggling, I think it's fair to say. Hitting .233, but does now have 4 homers in 25 games. Do you think people should hold on to Nick Kurtz? Do you think it was always going to take a little bit of time, and now we're maybe finally starting to see it? Or do you see that 35% strikeout rate and think there's got to be somebody better than that?
Yeah, I think Kurtz was an interesting decision in 12-team leagues and below because, he had such a rough start. I think this is kind of now the latest homer binge is now, let's see what he can do. He might be just go on an absolute tear here in the power department. So I added him in 4 of my 5 fab leagues, a couple of which were 12-teamers. And I did consider a potential drop for him. I did not drop him, but 15 teams and above, I'm definitely holding on. 12 teams, we'll just have to kind of see if this hot streak continues. And then, if he continues striking out at a super high clip without the homers that you paid for, I think it's worth the conversation to, consider a drop. But I'm encouraged by the past couple games here.
Yeah, going to need a few more games like that one, but at least we're finally starting to see something there from Nick Kurtz. We'll have some more injury news to talk about, but how about some injury-adjacent news? We have a return from injury for Spencer Strider. It didn't go all that well, though. He returned from this time, I guess, a hamstring strain after he had only made it back for a single start, returning from elbow surgery. His start last time, his first start of the year, he went 5 innings, gave up 2 runs, but then, of course, hit the IL, which I guess is worse than what happened this time. He at least has avoided the IL, but he gave up 4 runs in 4 1/3, struck out just 3. Altogether, didn't look Spencer Strider-ish, I think it's fair to say. What are we doing about this? I mean, we can't really do a lot, right? We're regretting drafting him anywhere we did, but beyond that, I mean, are you still putting him in the lineup if you have Spencer Strider on your team?
I am, yeah. I mean, he's only issued 2 walks in 8 1/3. Strikeout upside is always going to be there with him, although he's only struck out 9 1/3 innings thus far between his 2 starts this year. But I'm starting him. I think it's always going to, first couple starts back from pretty lengthy injury is always going to require some patience. So we'll see how he does in the next start. And just kind of pivot from there if need be. But yeah, I'm still rolling him out there.
All right. Elsewhere in injury news, we've got Dylan Cruz hitting the IL with an oblique strain. Cruz has had quite a year so far, most of it negative, a very poor start to the season. Then it looked like he was crawling out of the slump, and then he was struggling again, and now he's on the IL. Does that mean that Dylan Cruz doesn't need to still be on your roster by the time he returns from the IL, or would you still be trying, if at all possible, to keep a spot on the bench open for him?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I've pretty heavily invested in Cruz this year. It's going to be tough for me to hold because he's been so poor. But in the teams where I need stolen bases, I might consider holding him. The problem with oblique injuries is it's just so variable, right? I mean, it could last a long time. He could be back in 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know what the average oblique injury time missed is, but I know it's halted several hitters in the past for pretty extended periods, and it's just a bummer because it sounded like I think he was starting to turn a corner, show a little bit of life at the plate after that really disastrous start. Steals were still there, but yeah, it's going to be really tough for me to hold on to him. I think 15 teamers, it's kind of a let's wait for more news and just put him on your bench. But 12 teamers, he might be a drop for me.
The guy who was called up to take his place is a name from the past. Robert Hassel was a big prospect, one of the headliners of that first Juan Soto trade. He was just checking his prospect rankings history on RotoWire, which is one of my favorite tabs for young players, to not just look at how are they viewed right now as they're debuting, but how have they been viewed over the course of their minor league career. And Robert Hassel peaked as the number 5 prospect on James's top 400, but man, he's fallen off a cliff. Barely hanging out in the back of the top 400. A speculative ad even this weekend?
I think in 15 teamers, he's certainly worth an ad for sure. He'll get that playing time, see what he can do at the big league level. I mean, he's not, from a fantasy perspective, not super interesting. I mean, pretty minimal power, speed. Nationals run a lot, so you can certainly expect some stolen bases, possibly a decent average. But even in the minors, upper levels, I mean, his OPS has hovered kind of around the low 700 range. So when you translate that to taking the next step to the big league level, you can probably expect an OPS a little bit below 700, and which doesn't always equate to fantasy goodness. So.
Yeah, Hassel's 742 OPS right now is his highest OPS in any stint since that trade back in 2022. The last time he was even at 750 was in high A before the deal. So, yeah, not exactly high expectations at this point. We've got some more injuries. We've got some reliever injuries. I think we'll mention them here at the top, even though they'll be relevant to our exercise later. We've got Porter Hodge, who it seemed like he was going to have his chance as the Cubs closer with the way Ryan Presley's season has gone. Well, then Porter Hodge is now down himself in oblique strain. Could be just a couple weeks, could be nearly 2 months. So Porter Hodge, I don't think he's worth stashing very many places, I would imagine. What are we doing in the Cubs bullpen instead?
So yeah, Daniel Palencia, right-hander, throws triple digits on the radar gun. Got the Cubs' most recent save, was called over Ryan Presley, who obviously started the year with the closer job in Chicago. Presley has been interesting. It's been a skills decline over the past couple of years, obviously, for him. He obviously had that horrendous outing earlier this month against the Giants where he allowed 8 earned runs without recording an out. Hasn't recorded a save since April 13th, but surprisingly, he's gone scoreless in 15 of his last 16 outings. Just that one outing was disastrous. He does have a high whip. Presley 173 he's got a 9 to 9 K to walk ratio and 17 to the third innings. Not impressive. So why not go for the high upside reliever in Palencia? He blew his first opportunity of the season, but came right back in his next outing, converted his second career save. So I think Palencia is the preferred option right now. Definitely has that closer profile with the triple digit heat. So Hodge, it's not like Hodge was like outstanding either. I mean, 11 walks in 19 to the third, 150 whip, ERA over 5. So it's tough to like justify a hold for me with him, especially because, with the Cubs contending in the NL Central, I think, their eventual closer might not even be on this roster yet. They might be looking to upgrade their bullpen at some point. So.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. I mean, I'm just imagining a world where the Cubs didn't go get Ryan Presley and just decided Hodge was their guy. Well, we would be pretty annoyed at that if that was what was happening, because he has a 5.12 ERA, a 150 whip, like you said, poor strikeout and walk numbers as well. So not going great there. Daniel Palencia, maybe the guy. Let's look at the Texas bullpen, where there was an injury as well. Chris Martin has hit the IL with shoulder fatigue. Maybe that explains why he wasn't the one getting save chances. I'm not sure if those are related. Chris Martin never seems to get save chances, even though he's always one of his team's better relievers. But I guess, does this just leave the Texas bullpen in Luke Jackson's hands for however much longer he can keep it?
Yeah, I mean, if he even still has the job.
True.
Blew a save yesterday, gave up a walk-off home run to Jason Dominguez. I really think he's on the verge of losing that job in Texas. It's just, the tough part is like, who do you turn to, right? I mean, you mentioned Martin, who's on the IL with shoulder injury. I don't know how long he'll be out. It could be a while, could be a few weeks. So it's tough to like really put any stock into Martin right now. Sean Armstrong has picked up a few saves recently, but he's kind of a 34-year-old journeyman pitching for his fourth team over the past 2 years. So I'm not really interested in him at all. I think they could turn to Robert Garcia or maybe Jacob Webb. Webb has been particularly tough on left-handed batters this season. Just a 100 batting average against left-handed bats. And then Garcia, just solid campaign, 2.14 ERA with a 3.12 FIP, a whip of 1 in 21 innings. Has struggled in back-to-back outings, but I think he's definitely one of the favorites for Bruce Bochy to turn to if they decide to move away from Jackson.
All right. And one final piece of injury news to talk about here. Jared Jones has had his elbow surgery for the Pirates. It is not Tommy John surgery. I'm not seeing the words internal brace listed anywhere, but it looks like he's projected to have a 10 to 12 month recovery, which sounds like internal brace to me. That means theoretically Jared Jones could give you 4 months next year, but I think we're all learning from all the struggles of all of the currently injured, or not currently injured, but returning from injury starters this year. None of them are going very well. So I think next year probably going to stay off Jared Jones. At least that's my plan. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. For sure.
Not much else to say on that one, unfortunately. Another exciting pitcher who throws hard and is not going to be throwing for quite some time. But it's time to move over to the main topic of the day, where we're talking about some guys who throw hard and don't get hurt because they're only asked to throw hard for an inning at a time. Isn't that fun? We are going to take a look at every bullpen in baseball. I've split them up into 6 categories, ranging from there's a clear closer and we don't really have any questions, all the way down to we have so many questions that I don't even know if we care if there's a closer at all. You might have some guesses as to who falls into that final category. But we'll go section by section. We'll spend much more time on the ones where there's actually something to say. which means that I've got 10 teams in this first section here, which I've titled Clear Closer, No Real Worries. And I'm going to read them slowly one by one, and you're going to stop me if you think that I have put too much faith in these bullpens, and that maybe some of them belong in one of the later sections. Are we ready? Let's start with the Astros. No real questions about their closer and Josh Hader, right? We're all good there?
We're all good there. Hader's been awesome.
All right. The A's, Mason Miller. I mean, the ERA is a little inflated, but I don't think I have any real worries, right?
Not at all. I mean, he's got a 47% strikeout rate, which leads qualified relievers. It's also 8.2% higher than the next highest, Jeremiah Estrada, Kirby Yates, 38.8%. So pretty ridiculous season for Miller. Again, you mentioned the ERA is pretty high, but no concerns at all.
All right. Here's one where I imagine you might have some concerns. Trevor McGill. I thought I would have more concerns, and I thought that he wouldn't necessarily be used as a definite clear closer, but you look at the team's saves so far this year, and it looks pretty much like a closer to me. McGill has 7. Yoel Payamps has 1. Tyler Alexander has 1. Abner Uribe has 1. So did I put this in too confident of a category for Tyler McGill?
I would probably move the Brewers down a tier. Okay. You have the clear closers, some questions tier. I think I'd move them down a bit. I mean, McGill's durability is still a question mark for me. Right now, Milwaukee's monitoring his workload. Among the closer with 7+ saves, he's on the lower end with just 15.1 innings pitched. So, definitely monitoring the workload. It seems to be working, because he's remained healthy. But prior to this year, I think it was 44 2/3 was his max innings pitched in a season. Only Felix Bautista, Luke Jackson have pitched fewer innings among closers than McGill. So it's tough for me to have such high confidence in a closer like that, especially one with such a storied injury history. I really like Abner Uribe right now. Nick Mears, they're both pitching really well. Could easily step into the role if McGill were to get hurt. Uribe, I think, leads the team in saves. I highlighted him in my recent closer article, Closer Encounters. He's just got the closer profile. He throws really hard. Slider's been outstanding. 51.5% whiff rate on that pitch, which is like right in the realm of Andres Munoz, Hunter Green, near the top of the leaderboard. So I just really like what Uribe can do. I think eventually they turn to him, but again, that's just me not having faith in McGill's durability.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I came into the season expecting to have questions about McGill, and I guess if you still do, that makes a lot of sense. Based on his performance so far, I was thinking maybe we actually could ignore those questions, but I think it's fair to keep them in mind. You mentioned your article, Closer Encounters 2025 Midseason Closer Rankings 1.0 is the very fancy title there. Listeners can go to rotowire.com, use code YouTube15 to get 15% off a subscription to check out your rankings and notes over there. Back to the clear closers. Cardinals, Ryan Helsley, everything's good there?
Yeah, I think he's in the right tier right now. The one thing I'll say about the Cardinals is, I'll be monitoring their performance over the next month or so. Right now, 4 games above 500, only 3 games back of the Cubs in the NL Central. 36% to make the postseason per the playoff odds on Baseball Reference. But if you look at the NL National League, it's pretty stacked wild card contenders there between, the Mets, Phillies, Braves, Padres, Dodgers, Giants, D-backs, Cardinals. Putting the Cardinals in there among those teams, pretty tough for me to see them making the postseason. So given that, and that Ryan Helsley is a free agent next year, I lean towards the Cardinals eventually trading him if they fall out of contention. Phil Matan is also a free agent next year. Jojo Romero has 1 more year of arbitration before he hits free agency. So it's a big question mark of who they could turn to if they do trade Helsley. I do think the role is secure right now, but again, it all depends on how the Cardinals perform over the next month and change. If they do trade him, it's anyone's guess as to who they turn to. I do like Kyle Leahy, leads the team with 10 holds, got a sharp 071 whip. Riley O'Brien could be a dark horse. He's never really performed well in the majors. It's been a very limited sample, only 13 innings, but he's got a 27-6K to walk in 14 innings in AAA this year. So just a couple names to monitor. I think Leahy and O'Brien could be dark horses if they do trade Helsley.
All right, so Helsley definitely safe for now, but of course, there's a chance he gets traded somewhere where he falls into a setup role and maybe he doesn't give you saves in August and September. Far from guaranteed, though, at this point. The next bullpen with a clear closer is the Mariners. Andres Munoz, for several years, has been in maybe our third tier, which I would call close enough to a true closer, or maybe even our fourth tier, which we'll get to later in the show, which I've called committee with a clear number one. That's typically where Andres Munoz sits, but I'm pretty sure if you've got 16 of your team's 17 saves, you're a clear closer, and there's no real worries. I think Andres Munoz absolutely in this category one here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it leads the league with 16 saves, has yet to allow an earned run through 21 2/3 innings. So, yeah, definitely deserves to be up in this top tier.
And there was a managerial change, right? This is why Munoz is now a closer, and this is the kind of thing we should pay attention to with all the teams that are changing managers already this year. Sometimes you'll go from a committee to a more traditional setup or vice versa. So I think there were people who were on this change for Andres Munoz, and if you were, it's certainly paying off so far. The next bullpen where everything seems to be okay, I believe, is the Mets. Edwin Diaz, we're all good there. No questions.
Yep, no questions with Diaz at all.
All right, the Nationals. And Kyle Finnegan is not exactly as good as some of the guys we've been talking about, but I don't think there's any questions about his role right now. Is that true?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, again, it's a one-year deal similar to Helsley's a free agent next year. So, but, he was a free agent last year and they didn't trade him. They held him. Traded everyone else in that bullpen, Hunter Harvey and forget who else they traded. But yeah, it'll depend on whether they hold him or trade him. But yeah, real secure right now.
All right. And another safe closer, I believe, Felix Bautista with the Orioles. I mean, first year back from surgery there, not necessarily quite traditional closer usage or quite back to his previous dominance, but does he belong in this category still, Felix Bautista?
If we would have had this podcast a week ago, I would have said yes, but blew a save yesterday, his first of the season. He's allowed one earned run in 4 straight appearances, at least an earned run, 5 walks over his last 2 2/3. He does have all 7 of Baltimore saves this season, but the O's aren't really performing to expectations. Or 16 games under 500, 13 games back in the AL East. So I don't know, given that they want to kind of protect Bautista, if they'll continue with him in the closer role all year. They might just kind of do a phantom IL stint at some point, especially if they're just keep falling further and further out of contention. If they do have a fire sale, Seranthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto are free agents next year. Could be on the move. Andrew Kittredge, who recently made a season debut after arthroscopic knee surgery, could be on the trade block as well. He's got a $9 million team option next year with a $1 million buyout, so he's a trade candidate. Batista's got 2 more years of salary arbitration, so I have to wonder, would Baltimore actually consider trading him? I'm not sure, but it's just something that I'm monitoring. Definitely has stability right now, but the next couple weeks, next month or 2 could change a lot. So,
all right. So we'll take the Orioles out of this category for now. They got, a recently injured closer who's not performing great. We'll put them in category 2, the clear closer, some questions. 2 more in the clear closer, no real worries category. The San Diego Padres. We thought that there would be questions about Robert Suarez, but no. He's been one of the best relievers in baseball this year. That's still true. He absolutely belongs in this safe tier 1.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, it's unfortunate because I know you labeled me or introduced me as the reliever expert. I don't like that term expert. I'd rather say enthusiast, just because Suarez was my biggest fade at the closer position this offseason. I've just been completely wrong on him. So I think the logic behind why I was fading him was solid, but he's just, proved me wrong. So definitely taking the L. He definitely deserves to be in this tier. So no real concerns about him right now.
Reliever guy, reliever ranker. That fits the alliteration.
Reliever enthusiast.
All right, fine. We won't imply that you know what you're talking about. We'll just imply that you talk. Fair enough. The final team in this category 1 of clear closer with no real worries. I don't know if they do belong here, but the Reds, the way they've used Emilio Pagan and the way he's performed, certainly fits in with the rest of these closers. I think they're not really acting as if Pagan is anything less than a closer. They're not acting as if this is a committee. They're not acting as if he's imminently about to lose his job, are they? Is Emilio Pagan just a closer?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because it's tough for me to say no real worries when it comes to Pagan, but you really just can't argue with his production thus far. I mean, he's been great. He's 12 for 14 save chances, doesn't walk many batters, K rate near 30%. Thing with Pagan is we always worry about is the home runs, but that's always been an issue. And Terry Francona just likes his closer. He does, he's obviously been blessed with Class A in the past and recent seasons. Now with the Reds, Pagan has kind of ascended to the top of the hierarchy. He does have a 20 save season on his ledger. Appears to be well on his way to establishing a career high in the saves category in 2025. So, yeah, I think he certainly deserves to be in this tier.
All right. So, tier 1, again, the clear closer, no real worries, having removed the Brewers and Orioles. We've got the Astros, the A's, the Cardinals, the Mariners, the Mets, the Nationals, the Padres, and somehow the Reds. Now, tier 2, clear closer, but there are some questions. So these are teams that I'm not saying have a committee. They do have a closer, but I don't know if the closer is still going to be the guy by the end of the year. Maybe you'll move some of these guys up a tier. Maybe you'll move some of them down. Let's start with the Angels, who Kenley Jansen definitely is the closer, but he's also about 53 years old and has a 5.28 ERA. So Kenley Jansen still going to close by the end of the year?
Yeah, it's a question of who he closes for, though. He's a free agent after the season, and the Angels will probably trade him. So it's just a matter of, if there are any interested parties, which there should be just based on his high leverage experience alone, even though Jansen's struggling right now, he'll draw interest by contending teams. So, I mean, I think until the trade deadline, the job is his. And the question, if they do trade him, is who gets the job then. I like Ryan Zefrajan. He struggled a bit this month, but leads the Angels with 7 holds, has a 33.3% strikeout rate. I think he's very clearly the next man up in this hierarchy. That's somebody I'm definitely keeping an eye on in deeper leagues, somebody I'll be looking to add, over the next month or so. So, but yeah, it's just with Jansen, it's like he's likely to be dealt. I can't imagine there's going to be a contending team who does not want Kenley Jansen and his experience on their club. So we'll just see who he lands with.
All right. And if you're wondering why we forgot about Ben Joyce, he is out for the year for shoulder surgery. So not the next man up that he looked to be at one point. Another team who signed a closer this offseason, the Blue Jays with Jeff Hoffman, and things looked like they were going pretty well. And I was going to put him in the first category, but a downturn recently, I think. Is it fair to put Jeff Hoffman in this second category, or do you think everything is safe with him in the 9th inning in Toronto?
I think it's fairly safe. I mean, I'm not going to argue with the tier. I mean, he did have, 3 pretty rough outings this month. One against the Rays where he allowed 5 earned runs over a third of an inning. and then 2 against the Angels, where he allowed 3 earned runs in 2 separate games, over a third of an inning in each. So it's definitely kind of alarming. But if you look at his just overall body of work, he's still got a 1.13 WHIP, 10 saves in 12 chances, a 32 to 5 K to walk in 21 and a third innings. I think it's just pretty. He's just solid. I would still be rolling him out. I have no real concerns. I do like Yimi Garcia a lot, who's picked up 3 ancillary saves for Toronto. He's got a 105 WHIP, 24 strikeouts in 19 innings. So a lot to like with the backup. But unless there's an injury, I don't think there's too much concern with Hoffman.
Yeah, Jimmy Garcia had quite a good year last year, and I thought that there was some chance that the Blue Jays would make Hoffman actually beat him for the job this spring. That didn't really seem to be what happened. But if Hoffman does slump again, or continue to slump, however you want to put it, Garcia taking the job would make a lot of sense to me. Up next here, we've got the Braves, who I think, is it fair to put them in this category, not the first one? Raisel Iglesias, unquestioned hold on the job coming into the year, but a 5.89 ERA, 142 WHIP so far. Is there any chance he falls out of the job by midseason?
I think he's probably pretty safe if he remains with Atlanta. We really haven't seen Iglesias struggle like this for like 6 years. I think 2019 with the Reds, he lost 12 games, still had 30 plus saves, but gave up a bunch of homers that season. So tough to see because I really do like Iglesias. It's just his slider is getting destroyed this year. He's already allowed 6 home runs. I think 5 of them have been on his slider, and which has been historically a really good pitch for him. So the thing with Atlanta, right, is they started 0-7. They've been much better. Currently a 500 team. They have an 18% chance of making a playoff, according to Baseball Reference. But, if they falter over the next month, Iglesias is a free agent next year, similar to Kenley Jansen, who we just talked about. I think there'll be plenty of interest in Iglesias as, high leverage experience from contending clubs. So it will all depend on, how the Braves perform over the next, month and a half.
All right, let's move on to the Cleveland Guardians, who we had a question about their closer, Emmanuel Clase, what we think of him the rest of the season. Well, Clase, coming into the year, either you thought he was the best closer in baseball, which a lot of people did. I believe he was the number 1 by ADP most places, but he also had his skeptics, noting that he had handled a really heavy workload the last several seasons, and noting that, hey, he gave up a ton of runs in the postseason last year, in the way you might if you were wearing down after having a very heavy workload for several seasons in a row. There was some worry that this would be the bad season for Clase, and then he came out and was getting knocked around in the first couple weeks. He's turned it around recently, though, in a pretty big way. Only 1 earned run in his last 10 appearances. Does Emmanuel Clase belong back in Category 1?
Yeah, I think so. I think over the last month, has an 0.93 ERA, 0.93 WHIP, 12 to 2 K to walk, over 9 2/3 with 5 saves, a win and a hold over his last 10 appearances. So, yeah, I think I'd move him back up a tier. His struggles during the playoffs, I mean, it's just we're kind of amplified just due to the nature of being in the playoffs, deep in the playoffs. Definitely struggled against in that Yankee series last season. But he's turned it around. I mean, he's capable of doing so, and he's proven that he can turn things around very quickly after enduring struggles. So, I'd move him up a tier. I have no super big worries with him. Still definitely worth monitoring, but definitely the clear closer in Cleveland.
Yeah, there were people pointing out how much of his early struggles seemed to be just bad BABIP, and maybe there was more to it. Maybe that did actually explain a lot of it, and it wasn't just he's worn down and now done. Certainly, that's the way it looks over the last couple of weeks. The next bullpen here is one we've talked about earlier in the show, the Rangers. Do they still count as being in this category? I mean, this category clear closer with some questions. The sum might be understating it about Luke Jackson, but we still count him as a closer and not just a committee leader?
I guess barely.
Okay.
Like I said, I still think he's on the verge of losing his job. He's got a 1.57 WHIP. He's got a 7.7 K minus walk percentage, which ranks 190th among relief pitchers who have pitched more than 10 innings this year. So I can't imagine the Rangers, who are only 4 games back of Seattle in the AL West right now, still pretty decent chance of making the postseason, will want to keep running Jackson out there if they want to improve their playoff chances. So, I'm not. The tier is appropriate. There's some I would say there's a lot of questions surrounding Luke Jackson right now, but until Bruce Bochy says he's not the closer, he probably still is. I just don't think will be for very long.
All right. If I made multiple more tiers of varying levels of questions, then yes, they would certainly be on a lower 9. Tier. Exactly. Yeah. Tier 2.G7B. Exactly. Anyway, the next team in the clear closer some questions category is the Rays. Are we ever allowed to put the Rays in a clear closer category? I mean, I think we are, with the way they've used Pete Fairbanks this year, and actually not just this year. It's no longer a complete mess in the 9th inning in Tampa. So maybe even is this too low? Do they belong in tier 1 where Pete Fairbanks is just the closer? He's not having an amazing year, but by ERA 2.25, maybe he is. I don't totally know what to make of this one. What tier would you put the Rays in?
I think it's in the right tier. Honestly, I think I liken the Rays to like the Brewers, right? Where McGill, my biggest concern is his durability. That's clearly the biggest concern with Pete Fairbanks. He's proven the past couple of years that when he's healthy, he's the Rays closer. And when he's not, it depends on who's on the team. It used to be Jason Adam, who was pretty clearly the next man up. Now I'm not sure. They'd probably revert back to a committee. I mean, there's been a few different relievers who have picked up some ancillary saves recently, one being Garrett Clevenger. Mason Montgomery's intriguing. Eric Orzi is pretty interesting. He's got pretty good ratios, doesn't have a really high K rate, but is getting the job done. He's got 2 saves. So, I think this is the right tier. As long as Fairbanks is healthy, he's going to get the majority of the save opportunities.
Last year's breakout Rays reliever Edwin Uceta has a 5.66 ERA, less than a strikeout per inning. So that's how bullpens seem to go. Not the next man up there. I would much prefer the other guys you mentioned. We got 2 more in this clear closer some questions category. The Royals, is this fair? This is where Carlos Estevez belongs. I mean, he's not one of the league's best closers, but he does have the job still. Lucas Erceg not knocking on the door. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, Estevez has 14 of the team's 16 saves, so it's that's 88% of team save share. That's really, really high. He's up there with like Kyle Finnegan, who's got like 100% of Washington saves. So, I think the stability
Finnegan really does again. I hadn't noticed that stat. That was the whole reason to be into Finnegan, was that he got all the saves, right. And it's just as true this year. That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Lucas Erceg is phenomenal. He's among the league leaders in the holds category. I think he's, if the certain lineup pocket comes to the 9th inning where it's like, Judge or somebody like that coming up in the 9th inning, I would think Erceg gets the save chance over Estevez. But otherwise, I think Estevez is pretty much getting every other opportunity and pitched decently enough. I mean, the walks are a little high this year at 10.8%. Strikeouts have gone down to about 20%, but still getting the job done in the 9th. So,
all right. And then, the final team in the clear closer some questions category is the Yankees, but that clear closer is not Devin Williams. And the question from Vincent in the chat here is, what do we do? That is a very good question. The clear closer for the Yankees right now is Luke Weaver. there are some questions about him because Devin Williams is also on the team and theoretically could claim that job again at any point. But I believe the latest word from the team is that the change isn't necessarily imminent. So is it accurate to put the Yankees here, right? They're not about to go to a committee where it's Weaver and Williams in some mix. I'm reading this as it's Weaver and maybe it'll be Williams again later, but maybe it won't be. Is that your read?
Yeah, I have the same read. Yeah, exactly. It's, I think everybody's questioning is when will Devin Williams get the job back? Yesterday, Aaron Boone said he has no plans right now to reinsert Williams back into the closer role. Why mess with what's going well? I mean, Luke Williams has been really sharp lately. He's gone scoreless in 9 of his last 10 outings, but Luke Weaver's been even better. He's only given up 1 earned run all year in 21 2/3 innings. 19 of his 20 appearances this season have been scoreless. 0.55 whip, 0 home runs allowed. It's just tough to demote that type of performance from your
Right.
closer role. So unless Weaver just falls off the rails, I think they're just going to roll with him until he struggles. And last season he showed he was awesome. So that may just not happen over the course of the rest of this year. So.
Well, those early winter gladiators and DC teams where I ended up with Luke Weaver as my closer too, because I missed out on the good closers. It might have even been a closer 1 in some of them. That's actually turning out okay. Maybe I'll actually get 5 months of a closer out of Luke Weaver. That'll be fun. Let's move on. Well, let's wrap up the teams that were in this section. We promoted the Guardians to tier 1, but the rest of tier 2, clear closer with some questions. The Angels, the Blue Jays, the Braves, the Brewers, the Orioles, the Rangers, the Rays, the Royals, and the Yankees. All those teams have a closer. Not the safest, but they all have a closer. Now I've got 4 teams here who I'm calling close enough to a true closer. I don't know if these teams are actually going to label their guy the guy, but they're going to use him, I think, close enough to being the guy. Although I do have real questions about that in the case of the first team here, which is the Diamondbacks. And I'm saying this is once Justin Martinez returns. The news seems to be that he could return this weekend series from a shoulder injury. Currently, I guess if we were talking about the past couple weeks while Martinez was gone, I'm not sure. Shelby Miller, does he count as closer-ish for now? It's kind of more of a committee right now. Do you think it's going to be a committee when Martinez gets back, or do you think he's going to get a chance to just be the guy or basically the guy? What do you think the plan is going forward in Arizona?
Yeah, I think Martinez will be given an opportunity to close. I think more of like a 65 to 70% team save share with some others like Miller or Kevin Ginkel, picking up a save here and there. In Martinez's absence, Shelby Miller's racked up 5 saves, but he's also blown 2, has struggled since taking on that primary save share for Arizona. Over the last 8 innings, he has a 2.13 whip and a 7-6 K to walk. So not performing really well. So I can definitely see the momentum shifting in Martinez's favor. The velocity is back after, it dipped from his typical 99, 100 miles an hour to 95 when he was dealing with the shoulder inflammation. So he's thrown 2 scoreless innings in the minors. Velocity is back to norm. If Martinez is throwing that triple digit heat, I think that's just, an important part of his game. He uses that 100 mile per hour sinker to induce ground balls at a high clip, nearly 60%. Induces plenty of weak contact. So I think that's the kind of closer profile you want, very similar to Emmanuel Clase, who's got that same, 100 mile an hour cutter, induces weak contact, plenty of ground balls. The issue with Martinez, where I could see them kind of splitting the roles, is just high walk rate. It's perennially high. He hasn't solved that yet, but it's not like closers can't perform well with a high walk rate either. We've seen, we've seen Devin Williams, who always has a high walk rate, perform well in a closer role in the past. Aroldis Chapman's another one. I mean, there's just so many closers who have walk rates above 10 that do well. So It'll just be a matter of, does Martinez perform well when he's back? If so, I think he's got the primary save share until AJ Puck is back. Puck recently began throwing program. He's throwing from 60 feet right now, not eligible to return from the 60-day IL until July 1st. But when he does return, it could go back to like a co-closer situation between Puck and Martinez. But it's just kind of a lot up in the air right now. We'll just have to see how Martinez performs once he's back.
All right, so definitely somebody who's got the stuff to be a closer and might have a month or so where he has the clear grip on the role, but might remain fluid, assuming that Puck heals well. I'll just give you the rest of this tier altogether because I want to make sure we leave time for your thoughts on the committees. The other teams where I believe they don't have quite a true closer, but it's close enough. The Dodgers, Tanner Scott, only actually has 10 of 17 saves, but 10 is enough. I'm pretty sure we just use him like he's a closer for fantasy purposes, even if he isn't quite. The Red Sox, Aroldis Chapman, I'm also calling in this category. Maybe we just call him an actual closer, but it seems like Justin Slayton does get enough that maybe this is also a committee with a clear number one. And then also the Twins, Joanne Duran, he always seems to sit in this category where he's not literally a closer in the classic traditional sense, but he gets a pretty strong share of the saves that we can effectively treat him like one. Do you object to my placement of any of those three teams?
I'd probably put Aroldis Chapman, the Red Sox, a tier higher.
Okay.
Chapman's got a 75% team save share. He's got 8 of the Red Sox 12 saves. He's significantly improved his first pitch strike percentage this year, 72.4%, which is a huge increase from last year. He's typically a double-digit walk rate kind of guy, but he's at 9.2% this year, which is excellent. Has improved his ball percentage. So I think I actually did Chapman a disservice by ranking him 20th on my midseason closer rankings. He probably deserves to be, 15, 16 range or even higher. So I'd move the Red Sox up, but the Dodgers I think is the right place. Tanner Scott's been really good, but he's only recorded 2 of the team's 5 saves this month. He's been outstanding though. He's only walked 1 batter across 23 1/3 innings. His 1.2% walk rate is best in the league among qualified relievers, which is awesome for someone who's got a 12.1% walk rate for his career. It's tough because I want to move him up, but I think this is the right tier just because the Dodgers will always give other people save opportunities, even if their primary closer is awesome. So.
All right, let's move on to the committees here to close the show. There's fewer true committees than there have been in recent years. At least that's the way it felt to me when I was putting this list together. I've got 2 tiers of committees. First, committees with a clear number one. That's what I'm calling the Marlins with Jesus Tinoco. And assuming that there's other guys that are at least in the picture, but the team just doesn't get a lot of saves. I mean, we've got Calvin Fauché is got a couple. Anthony Bender has 1. Is Jesus Tinoco a closer or is he a committee lead?
I think he's a committee lead. It's tough to say who's going to lead this team in saves by the end of the season. I think it could be any one of the 3 relievers you mentioned between Tinoco, Bender, and Fauché. I think Tinoco is kind of the leader just because he's got the most saves on the team right now at 4. It's just, I don't know if that will hold very long because, he hasn't been especially sharp of late. So,
right. Yeah, fair enough. We've got another committee with a clear number one. That's what I'm calling the Phillies right now in a post-Jose Alvarado PED suspension world. I'm reading this as still a committee with Jordan Romano in the lead and Matt Strahm and Orion Kirkring still part of it. I don't think the Phillies are going to name Jordan Romano the guy, but are they going to let him be the guy?
Yeah, I think he's the guy right now. I'd actually move the Phillies up a tier to close enough to a true closer. This month, he's posted 7 scoreless innings with an 0.57 whip. I think, especially now with the Jose Alvarado suspension of 80 games, I think he's the clear lead, especially now that he's performing well. I think if his performance kind of suffers, that's when they'll introduce Strahm and potentially Kirkring into the mix a little bit more. But I also know they were rumored to be interested in David Robertson, so they could
make
add
a lot
another
of
arm
sense
to this high leverage core here.
Yeah, I think the Phillies should be reaching out to Robertson. I think the Cubs, who the Phillies acquired Robertson from a couple years ago for Ben Brown, I think they should be reaching out to him as well. I guess the question with these committees is whether or not the second and maybe third guys are also worth picking up and or starting. I mean, Matt Strahm in a 15-team league, do you think that he's got enough of a save share? The ratios are excellent. Is he worth an ad? Worth even starting?
I mean, I think I'd put him for like 5 to 7 saves this year. I mean, he's already got 2.
Right.
So, I mean, I think he's definitely worth adding in a 15-teamer just because the strikeouts are there, the ratios are solid. I mean, 25 Ks and 18 2/3. So that type of production is worth rostering in a 15-team deep format, I think, regardless of whether he's getting saves or not. If your starters don't have the best matchups, you can just plug Strahm in there and get 5 Ks in a week. With a potential for save. So,
all right, our next closer committee here, the Detroit Tigers. Are we willing to call them committee with a clear number 1? Do we have enough of a lead in this committee for Will Vest, or is this just a complete mess?
This one's tough. Again, this is another situation of if we did this podcast last week, I would have said Vest is kind of the clear number 1, but he's only recorded 2 of the Tigers' 4 saves this month. The last 3 saves have been by different relievers in Detroit. So I'd probably move them down to a committee without a clear number 1, just because Tommy Kahnle currently leads the team with 6 saves. He has the most recent save. This one's just going to be kind of fluctuate all season. And I think right now it's kind of between Vest and Kahnle. But Kahnle doesn't have a long track record of health. He has performed well when he's healthy, but we'll see if he stays healthy. And if he's injured, then I'd be interested to see, what AJ Hinch does with the leverage plans.
Tigers winning enough games that both Vest and Kahnle both might be worth, I think, including in your lineup. What about Tyler Holton, Bo Brisky? Could we just leave them on the wire these days?
Holton, I would, just because he's not really performing to expectations this year. Doesn't have a save yet. He's recently worked as an opener, which is a high leverage spot just at the early part of the game, not the late part of the game. So I'd probably fade Holton just because he's kind of struggling this month. He's given up runs in 4 of his 7 appearances this month. So Brisky, I would consider adding just because he did have a recent save. He was kind of one of the favorites coming into the season. And he's got some closer stuff. So I would consider him, but 4 home runs allowed in 15 appearances, 16 innings. So that's the one concern.
All right. Now we got a couple committees without a clear number 1. We talked about the Cubs at the start because Porter Hodge has hit the IL, an oblique strain. We mentioned Daniel Palencia and Ryan Presley, I guess, and we're not very excited about anything going on there. I don't know if we need to add anything else there. Do you want to move on to the other 2 committees?
I think I would just say the Cubs are probably going to add to their bullpen at some point just because they're, playoff contender. I don't think Palencia has definitely got some upside, but I don't think they're willing to kind of go into the playoffs with him as their closer. Assuming they do make the playoffs, I think they're on the right track to do so. But again, still a long season ahead. But I think we've covered pretty much everything else with Chicago.
All right, then we have a pair of bullpens here where it's less a committee, more of 2 options fighting for the job at the moment. The Giants, Camilo Doval back in the mix alongside Ryan Walker. Is there a lean there, or is this a pretty close to an even split right now?
No, I'd lean Walker. He's got all 4 saves of the Giants this month. Doval hasn't recorded one since late April. April 24th was his last save. Doval is on quite a run though. He's definitely pretty long scoreless streak. Last gave up an earned run on April 7th. So probably kind of more fits the highest leverage role right now prior to the 9th inning, while Walker kind of picks up the save chances. Walker's been a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe they belong a couple tiers earlier. Then we're saying we're having more faith in Walker, even though Duvall has those saves on his ledger this year.
Yeah, I think Duvall is the better pitcher right now, but Walker is, the usage this month just tells me, he's the closer. He's got, again, the last 4 saves for the Giants. That's a pretty long leash. All 4 of them for this month. So, but until he like supremely falters, I think he's kind of been rocky with the walks a little bit this year. K rate isn't super high, but yeah, it's just, again, it comes down to he's getting the saves now, so he's kind of the guy right now.
All right, and our 28th bullpen, and the last one that I actually want to know who's getting the saves in, is the Pirates, who I think it's a 2-man committee at the moment. Is that fair to say? Dennis Santana and David Bednar. Are we in the process of Bednar claiming the job for real again? There's been a managerial change, so or maybe we just going to see a committee for good. How are you reading this one?
Yeah, I think Bednar's on the verge of getting that job back. That said, Dennis Santana has recorded 2 of the team's 3 saves under new manager Don Kelly. Santana picked up a save yesterday, but I think Bednar wasn't available. He pitched 2 straight games prior. Bednar's been getting the tougher lineup pockets over Santana. So yesterday it was the 4, 5, 6 hitters of the Reds lineup. And if Bednar was available, I think he would have gotten the save chance. So it's just a matter of availability with yesterday's save. But yeah, I think it's a committee until Bednar kind of takes over. I mean, he's been lights out since he's been recalled from the minors. 20-1 K to walk over 13 1/3 innings. Got 3 saves and 3 holds since during that span. A 1.13 WHIP. So just been outstanding. He's definitely their highest leverage reliever. It's just it comes down to like availability and which lineup pockets are coming up for the opposing teams right now in the late innings.
All right, so really startlingly few true closer committees these days, I would say, even though we're seeing still the decline of a traditional closer. Seems like a lot of teams going with this model of, yeah, he's basically the guy, but he's not going to get all the saves. A lot of teams in that middle. These final 2 teams might be a committee, but I've labeled them don't know, don't care. The Rockies and the White Sox. I almost want us to end the show without having named a single reliever from either of these bullpens to not accidentally imply that listeners should maybe consider picking up someone. But if you want to break that policy, I mean, can you envision yourself picking up and actually starting in your lineup a Rockies reliever or a White Sox reliever? Is anybody there enough of a bet that you would project them for even a quarter of a save in a given week to the point where you would actually feel good starting
them? For the White Sox, no.
Okay.
I guess I shouldn't say that. I did highlight Jordan Leisure in my recent Closer Encounters article. He just picked up his first save of the season for the team. He's been their best reliever just by, under the hood type stuff. I mean, 30% K rate, pretty high walk rate, but swinging strike percentage is there. He's definitely got the best stuff in that pen out of anyone. So, but I'm not rushing to pick him up just because the White Sox are so bad, right? Rockies, I'm embarrassed to say I picked up Seth Halverson over the weekend on several teams. It was just kind of far down my waterfall list, and I kind of landed on him at multiple spots. Did start him in my main event, so that was rough because he had a poor outing earlier this week against the Phillies, allowing 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning. I mean, it's tough between, Zach Agnos has a couple saves as well. I think he's probably the top of the hierarchy right now, but he's not like super special. K rate is really low, 14%. Not walking anybody, 2% walk rate, but while the ratios are good, again, the K rate is really low, and I don't know how long you can really sustain the the success there. Does have a high swing to strike percentage, so that doesn't kind of like match the K rate. So I would expect the strikeout rate to go up, but again, it's the Rockies. It's tough to like really invest in any Agnos or Halverson. I just happened to land on Halverson and it bit me. So,
well, we'll see if it will benefit you going forward, I guess. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you to everybody who hung out in the comments. I know you've got to run to a meeting, Ryan, but any last hot takes, relievers or otherwise, you want to share on your way out the door?
Not really. I mean, we touched on some of it, but it could be some high-profile names on the move this year. I mean, between Raisel Iglesias, Kenley Jansen, Ryan Helsley, potentially Felix Bautista, others, it could be a pretty hot reliever market later this summer.
You want to make the call right now? Send one of them to the Cubs?
Helsley, yeah. Well, no, because that's
no
that's
Cardinals
an interdivision
Cubs.
team.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that won't happen. I guess I called Kenley to the Cubs in the past, so we'll go with Kenley.
All right, Kenley Jansen to the Cubs. You heard it here first, unless it doesn't happen, in which case you forgot all about it. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks again, Ryan. Everybody can go check out your latest closer rankings at RotoWire.com. Use code YouTube15 for 15% off a subscription there. And we'll be back tomorrow. It'll be Todd and Clay with two-start pitchers here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.